Our second speaker is talking from the manual that has not been created yet. The title of his speech is Women of the American Revolution. It is 8 to 10 minutes. Women of the American Revolution, Alan Myers.
Thank you, Michael. Lydia Barrington Duraw, Patriot spy. Born in Dublin, she and her husband moved to the colonies in 1755. He was a tutor, she was a midwife. They moved to Philadelphia because it had a large Quaker population. Ultimately, she had 9 children. Sadly, 4 died in infancy. They were supporters of the rebel cause, but they kept it secret. Being Quakers by nature are pacifists. Let's go to 1777, the fall. Washington and the troops are getting their khaki kicked. And in September, the British march into Philadelphia, take control. Ultimately, about a third of the city evacuates. Just so happens that the general in charge, Sir William Howe, decides to establish his headquarters on the street Lydia lives on. Imagine that. Your city has just been taken over and the general is on your street. Lydia's spy career just began. She used her 14-year-old son to smuggle notes out to their eldest son, Charles, who was a soldier with Washington's troops. So much for being a pacifist. Ultimately, in December of 1777, early, for some reason, Howe wanted to have a secret meeting at her house. At that time, it was Lydia and her 2 children. They were allowed to stay, but they had to promise to stay in their rooms. Lydia promised she would. She lied. During the meeting, she hid in a linen closet attached to the meeting room. She heard the plan to attack Washington. As a homemaker, she was allowed to leave the city to visit her children who were outside the city and obtain flour from the mill outside the city. There's many stories about what happened. One was that she went to the tavern called the Rising Sun Tavern, a known Patriot message center. She was able to get the intelligence to an American officer. The note that was passed, General Howe was coming, 5,000 men, 13 cannons. Regardless of how Washington got the intel, he had time to prepare. The battle lasted 4 days to a standoff. General Howe and the British returned to Philadelphia. Washington and the troops survived to live another day, and they moved to Valley Forge for a 7-month winter encampment. When the British got back to Philadelphia, some of them felt their plan had been leaked. On December 9th, Lydia was questioned by Major John Andre. She said they were in their rooms asleep. He believed them. Again, Lydia lied. Lydia, the Quaker housewife, outsmarted the spy master who had recruited and turned Benedict Arnold. Lydia Barrington Duraw, Patriot spy. But just for a moment, think of what she risked by being in that linen closet. If she was heard, what would happen to her? What would happen to her children? What would happen to her house? She put it all on the line. Next, Margaret Cochran Corbin, Patriot soldier. This woman had such a tough life. At the age of 4, the French and Indian War broke out. At the age of 5, her father was killed in an Indian raid. Her mother was taken captive, never to be seen again. She and her brother were sent to the uncle to be raised. At the age of 21, she got married to John Corbin. 3 years later, 1775, he joined the Pennsylvania military. Margaret had a choice: stay home by herself, possibly become impoverished, starve, or be captured in the war, or become a camp follower. Go with her husband, stay with the troops, earn a little money, cooking, cleaning, sewing, taking care of the sick and wounded. That's your choice. Amazingly, she thought it was better to become a camp follower than stay home by herself. November 1776, Margaret, her husband, and their regiment are at Fort Washington in New York. The Battle of Fort Washington begins. Margaret dresses as a man, joins her husband in 600s in the fight. On the other side, British and German mercenaries number 4,000. John's job was, I think the word is matros. He's responsible for loading the cannons. Into the battle, John and most of his team are killed. What does Margaret do? Does she retreat? No. She stays, and she takes over the firing of the cannon. She was known for a steady aim and a sure shot. Eventually, she was taken down by 3 musket balls and grape shot. Her left arm was almost completely severed. She was severely wounded. The British won the battle, but Margaret's cannon was the last to fire. When she was found by British doctors, thankfully, they saved her life. She eventually recovered from her wounds, but she was never the same. Her arm was basically paralyzed. She had trouble dressing herself, eating. She joined the Invalid Regiment at West Point, where she aided the wounded. She didn't make friends easily with women. Actually, she made none. She was considered to be gruff, unfeminine, rough in manner, and she had a drinking habit, well, along with a smoking habit. Some considered her an offensive person. Ultimately, this woman who put it all on the line, literally, earned a lifelong pension equivalent to only half that of a male combatant, but she was the first woman to be officially recognized for her military service. The war was over. She married a wounded soldier. He died a year later. Just shy of 50, she died. She was buried in an obscure grave along the Hudson River. But in 1926, with full military honors, she was reinterred at the West Point Cemetery. Margaret is one of only 2 Revolutionary War soldiers buried there. Margaret Cochran Coburn, patriot soldier. Finally, Margaret Catherine Moore Berry, better known as Kate, patriot messenger spy. She was born in the colony of South Carolina, lived till she was 70, had 3 children. She was 15 when she married her husband, Andrew Berry. She believed in the war for liberty. Her husband, Andrew, became a captain in the militia. Kate became a spy and a messenger. She was quite the horsewoman. She, like Sybil Ludington, her time, she rode through the night to get the job done. What she was doing, she was carrying a message to the Continental Army in South Carolina, prepare for the British attack. Now, the Continental Army was really losing it in the South. She got the message through, rode through the night. Then came the Battle of Cowpens, January 17th, 1781. Cowpens is a frontier pasture land on the northern border of South Carolina. As I said, the troops were getting it kicked. Well, this turned out to be one of the most, if not the most decisive American victories in the war for liberty. What happened? The Americans knew what was coming. They repositioned themselves. The Brits thought this was going to be a rout. They advanced. They were taken down by a volley of unexpected and concentrated rifle fire and a cavalry charge. They lost. General Cornwallis retreated, headed to Yorktown. Ultimately, you got the Battle of Yorktown, or the Siege of Yorktown. Cornwallis took his troops out onto a peninsula. The land exit was blocked by the Continental Army. The water exit was blocked by the British Navy, the French Navy, excuse me. The war ended. We have stories of 3 women: Lydia Barrington Duras, Patriot spy; Margaret Cochrane Corbin, Patriot soldier; Margaret Catherine Moore Barry, Patriot spy. They are all brave, selfless, strong, capable, courageous women, willingly and knowingly put it all on the line, all online for a dream. Again, the dream of freedom. Ladies, as always, I will always stand in your shadows.